Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another Elden Ring video. Today we're going to take a look at a really awesome early and late game dexterity build that absolutely destroys enemies. It one-shots most people in PvP and completely dominates even as far as Journey 3, at least from my testing. It's dealing pure damage, no status effects whatsoever, and we're gonna take advantage of its unique piercing attacks to buff that to even higher levels. So the way this build works is pretty straightforward. We're gonna take one of the most stabby weapons in Elden Ring, which is the KATAR, and then we're gonna dual wield it, which is basically giving us 2 instances of the weapon in both of our hands. Finally, we're gonna buff it with a Royal Knight's Resolve Ash of War, which is going to buff our damage in both of our hands. This is going to result in thousands and thousands of damage, 5k with an easy jumping attack, or 3.5k if you screw things up, but even then I think that's plenty enough damage. And of course, I play with this both in PvP and PvE. In Journey 3, it still completely destroys bosses, but this is something that you can, go ahead and build as early as Journey 0, case in which is going to be even more noticeable in terms of how OP it is. In PvP, it's just straight up broken. It one-shots literally everybody. I don't think I've seen anybody being able to resist a full jumping attack with this one, so yeah, I'm not sure if this is gonna get nerfed at some point. Now, of course, the weapon of choice in this case is going to be the KATAR. This is, as I've said, a stabby kind of fist weapon in the sense that all of its attacks, with no exclusion, deal piercing damage, which we're gonna take advantage of to further buff our damage, as you'll see in just a little bit. And of course, we also make use of a seal in the other hand, just because, I mean, why not? We have plenty of points, even at 125, and still reaching the dexterity caps, so I put 25 over there. That lets me just cast a golden vow for even more damage. In terms of talismans is where it becomes a bit more interesting. I mean, yes, we're still using the raptor's black feathers with the claw talisman, since we're relying a lot on jumping attacks, so we do want that 25 to 30% additional damage bonus to those types of attacks. But on top of that, we're also making use of a spear talisman, and if you go by its description, you might be tempted to use it wrong. Basically, this enhances the counter attacks that are unique to thrusting weapons. So no, it doesn't just apply to spears, but to anything that does piercing damage. In this case, the KATAR fits that perfectly. Now, when it mentions counterattacks, this doesn't mean riposte. It actually means attacks that you perform against a target that is in the middle of its own attacks. So let me demonstrate. Let's say we go up against one of these targets. Doing a regular unaware jumping attack deals 3.2k, which is really good. But watch what happens if we land the hit in the middle of its own attack. So yeah, as you can see, that gets a massive 30% at least bonus damage on top of what we already had, all the way up to almost 5k at 125. And that's actually something that you will want to do with this build. It's going to highly reward high skill, in the sense that if you see any enemies attacking or being in the middle of their own attacks, this is the perfect moment to go in and do damage. In PvP, this means it's the perfect trading tool. You just jump in and you will always know that whatever happens, unless you instantly get one-shotted yourself, the other target is always going to end up much worse than you do. As far as other talismans go, it's a matter of what you feel comfortable with. If you can predict many of the boss attacks and reliably keep 100% HP, a Ritual Sword Spear is the best for damage. In this case, you can just unleash the maximum damage if you don't get any on your own character. Otherwise, you can switch to a prosthetic, for example, for extra 5 dexterity and more attack power with successive attacks, or even a winged sword insignia, or maybe a defensive talisman in case you need something like that. On top of that, I'm also coupling this with a number of buffs specifically for the physic tier. I didn't show this in the previous video, but I'm making use of a dexterity not crystal tier and a thorny cracked tier. The first one gives me 10 plus dexterity for 3 minutes, and the second one makes consecutive attacks to grow my attack power also for 3 minutes. So it's perfect because this is also a very fast weapon that deals very fast damage. so it's the perfect combination. Now, in terms of the stats, here's a quick glimpse over them. I'm trying to reach that 80 cap for dexterity. In this case, I even exceeded it. I'm pretty sure you can reach like 97 dexterity with this build right here and all of the buffs at the same time without sacrificing much of the other stats. I'm only putting other 25 points into faith because I need the golden vow. It's absolutely important to get this, or just get the commander standard that gives you a similar buff, but in that case it's not gonna last that long. Now, as far as the strategy goes, we're gonna pre-buff our characters before every fight, so that physic tier lasts 3 minutes, way more than any fight in Elden Ring. Then we're gonna top it off with either a Blood Boil Aromatic or a Flame Granary Strength, depending on your preference. But of course, you can't stack both of these at the same time, only one or the other, since they override each other. And finally, a Golden Vow. From this point on, right before jumping on the target, we're gonna also buff ourselves with Ash of War and then unleash that jumping attack for maximum damage. Now, in my case, I prefer just unleashing the jumping attack whenever the target is in the middle of its own attack. So for example, if there's something like a wind up, it's totally the perfect option to jump in and unleash yours for that extra almost 30% damage from that spear talisman. If it's a dragon or anything that just casts a very long spell attack, like the Elden Beast for example, or a dragon, this is just so much free damage, it's not even funny. And of course, you can pretty much do this against anybody. As you can see, it doesn't really make a difference if you play like that or just go carelessly. You will still deal very high damage, but it's just me that I personally prefer doing it in the middle of the enemy's attacks. Now for PvP, it's even more, well, broken. I think I can say it's broken because it definitely feels like it is. Pretty much anything, no matter how much HP they might have, will get one-shotted. I've done 1800 damage, one-shotting tank kind of builds, so it totally works. Even enemies that normally have high defenses or builds with high defenses and HP get one-shotted with a proper jumping attack, but you do have to be careful how you do it. The reason for that is because it's kind of easy to see it coming, so I guess that kind of takes back a little bit of the broken OP aspect of this build. If you pull it off too often in one combat and the other player notices your strategy, yeah, you're not going to be able to do it from this point on. But if you take them by surprise, if you play it safe and then just do it at the right moment, damn, it's so satisfying and it's going to kill everybody every single time. So yeah, this is it with the build. Totally let me know down below in the comments, have you used something similar to this, or are you using something different? Do you think it's broken OP and should be nerfed even more, or do you think it should be capped? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.